What is the chemical composition of a skunk's spray?
The chief odorous components of the spray have been identified as crotyl mercaptan, isopentyl mercaptan, and methylcrotyl disulfide in the ratio of 4:4:3. The liquid is an oily, pale yellow, foul-smelling spray that can cause severe eye inflammation. This defensive weapon is discharged from two tiny nipples located just inside the skunk's anus, either as a fine spray or a short stream of rain-sized drops. Although the liquid's range is 6.5 to 10 feet, 2 to 3 meters. Its smell can be detected 1.5 miles, 2.5 kilometers, downwind.
How are the teeth and tongue involved in chewing?
The first stage of mechanical digestion is mastication, or chewing. Initially, the teeth tear and shred large pieces of food into smaller units. The muscles of the tongue, cheeks, and lips help keep the food on the surfaces of the teeth. The tongue then compacts the food into a small round mass of material called the bolus. The salivary glands help lubricate the food with secretions.
How does blood alcohol level affect the body and behavior?
The effects of drinking alcoholic beverages depend on body weight and the amount of actual ethyl alcohol consumed. The level of alcohol in the blood is calculated in milligrams. 1 milligram equals 0.035 ounce. Of pure, ethyl, alcohol per deciliter, 3.5 fluid ounces, commonly expressed in percentages.
Which metallic element is the most abundant?
Aluminum is the most abundant metallic element on the surface of Earth and the Moon. It comprises more than 8% of Earth's crust. It is never free in nature, combining with oxygen. Sand, iron, titanium, and other substances, its ores are mainly bauxites, aluminum hydroxide. Nearly all rocks, particularly igneous rocks, contain aluminum as aluminosilicate minerals. Napoleon III, 1808–1883, recognized that the physical characteristic of its lightness could revolutionize the arms industry, so he granted a large subsidy to French chemist Saint-Clair de Ville. 1818–1881, to develop a method to make its commercial use feasible. In 1854, de Ville obtained the first pure aluminum metal. Through the process of reduction of aluminum chloride. In 1886, American Charles Martin Hall, 1863–1914, and Frenchman Paul Héroult, 1863–1914, independently discovered an electrolytic process to produce aluminum from bauxite.
What is cinnabar?
Cinnabar is the main ore of the mineral mercury. Its cinnamon to scarlet red color makes it a colorful mineral. It is produced primarily in the United States, California, Oregon, Texas, and Arkansas, Spain, Italy, and Mexico. It is often used as a pigment.
What general characteristics do all fishes have in common?
All fishes have the following characteristics: 1. Gills that extract oxygen from water. 2. An internal skeleton with a skin that surrounds the dorsal nerve cord. 3. Single loop blood circulation in which the blood is pumped from the heart to the gills and then to the rest of the body before returning to the heart. 4. Nutritional deficiencies, particularly some amino acids that must be consumed and cannot be synthesized.
For whom is the Hubble Space Telescope named?
Edwin Powell Hubble, 1889 to 1953, was an American astronomer known for his studies of galaxies. His study of nebulae, or clouds the faint, unresolved luminous patches in the sky showed that some of them were large groups of many stars. Hubble classified galaxies by their shapes as being spiral, elliptical, or irregular. Hubble's law establishes a relationship between the velocity of recession of a galaxy and its distance. The speed at which a galaxy is moving away from our solar system, measured by its redshift, the shift of its light to longer wavelengths, presumed to be caused by the Doppler effect, is directly proportional to the galaxy's distance from it. The Hubble Space Telescope was deployed by the Space Shuttle Discovery on April 25, 1990. The telescope, which would be free of distortions caused by Earth's atmosphere, was designed to see deeper into space than any telescope on land. However, on June 27, 1990, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced that the telescope had a defect in one of its mirrors that prevented it from properly focusing. Although other instruments, including one designed to make observations in ultraviolet light, were still operating, nearly 40% of the telescope's experiments had to be postponed until repairs were made. On December 2, 1993, astronauts were able to make the necessary repairs. 4 of Hubble's 6 gyroscopes were replaced as well as 2 solar panels. Hubble's primary camera, which had a flawed mirror, was also replaced. Since that mission, 4 other servicing missions have been conducted, dramatically improving the HST's capabilities.
What is a normal fetal heart rate?
The fetal heart rate is much faster than an adult's, or even a child's, heart rate. The average adult resting heart rate is 60 to 80 beats per minute. The normal fetal heart rate is 110 to 160 beats per minute.
What are quasars?
The name quasar originated as a contraction of quasi-stellar radio source. Quasars appear to be star-like, but they have large redshifts in their spectra indicating that they are receding from Earth at great speeds, some at up to 90% the speed of light. Their exact nature is still unknown, but many believe quasars to be the cores of distant galaxies, the most distant objects yet seen. Quasars, also called quasi-stellar objects or QSOs, were first identified in 1963 by astronomers at the Palomar Observatory in California.
What are the components of smog?
Smog, the most widespread pollutant in the United States, is a photochemical reaction resulting in ground-level ozone. Ozone, an odorless, tasteless gas in the presence of light, can initiate a chain of chemical reactions. Ozone is a desirable gas in the stratospheric layer of the atmosphere, but it can be hazardous to health when found near Earth's surface in the troposphere. The hydrocarbons, hydrocarbon derivations, and nitric oxides emitted from such sources as automobiles are the raw materials for photochemical reactions. In the presence of oxygen and sunlight, the nitric oxides combine with organic compounds, such as the hydrocarbons from unburned gasoline, to produce a whitish haze, sometimes tinged with a yellow-brown color. In this process, a large number of new hydrocarbons and oxyhydrocarbons are produced. These secondary hydrocarbon products may comprise as much as 95% of the total organics in a severe smog episode.
When were bacteria discovered?
Anton van Leeuwenhoek, 1632–1723, a Dutch fabric merchant and civil servant, discovered bacteria and other microorganisms in 1674 when he looked at a drop of pond water through a glass lens. Early, single-lens instruments produced magnifications of 50 to 300 times real size. Approximately one-third of the magnification produced by modern light microscopes. Primitive microscopes provided a perspective into the previously unknown world of small organisms, which von Leeuwenhoek called animalcules in a letter he wrote to the Royal Society of London. Because of these early investigations, von Leeuwenhoek is considered to be the father of microbiology.
Who sent the first email?
In the early 1970s, computer engineer Ray Tomlinson, 1941, noticed that people working at the same mainframe computer could leave one another messages. He imagined great utility of this communication system if messages could be sent to different mainframes. So he wrote a software program over the period of about a week. that used file transfer protocols and send and receive features. It enabled people to send messages from one mainframe to another over the ARPANET. The network that became the Internet. To make sure the messages went to the right system, he adopted the @ symbol. Because it was the least ambiguous keyboard symbol and because it was brief.
What is meant by the phrase greening of the galaxy?
The expression means the spreading of human life, technology, and culture through interstellar space and eventually across the entire Milky Way galaxy, Earth's home galaxy.
How many vertebrae are in the neck of a giraffe?
A giraffe neck has 7 vertebrae, the same as other mammals, but the vertebrae are greatly elongated.
Why is El Niño harmful?
Along the west coast of South America, near the end of each calendar year, a warm current of nutrient-poor tropical water moves southward, replacing the cold, nutrient-rich surface water. Because this condition frequently occurs around Christmas, local residents call it El Niño. Spanish for child, referring to the Christ child. In most years the warming lasts for only a few weeks. However, when El Niño conditions last for many months, the economic results can be catastrophic. It is this extended episode of extremely warm water that scientists now refer to as El Niño. During a severe El Niño, large numbers of fish and marine plants may die. Decomposition of the dead material depletes the water's oxygen supply, which leads to the bacterial production of huge amounts of smelly hydrogen sulfide. A greatly reduced fish, especially anchovy, harvest affects the world's fish meal supply, leading to higher prices for poultry and other animals that normally are fed fish meal. Anchovies and sardines are also major food sources for marine mammals, such as sea lions and seals. When the food source is in short supply, these animals travel farther from their homes in search of food. Not only do many sea lions and seals starve, but also a large proportion of the infant animals die. The major El Niño event of 1997 to 1998 indirectly caused 100 human deaths and $33 billion in damage globally.
Who first used the term prion?
Prions are abnormal forms of natural proteins. Stanley Prusiner, 1942, first used the term prion in 1982 in place of the expression proteinaceous infectious particle when describing an infectious agent. Prusiner was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1997. Current research indicates that a prion is composed of about 250 amino acids. Despite extensive and continuing investigations, no nucleic acid component has been found. Like viruses, prions are infectious agents.
What is a trademark?
A trademark protects a word, phrase, name, symbol, sound, or color that identifies and distinguishes the source of the goods or services of one party, individual or company, from those of another party.
What is dyslexia and what causes it?
Dyslexia covers a wide range of language difficulties. In general, a person with dyslexia cannot grasp the meaning of sequences of letters, words, or symbols, or the concept of direction. The condition can affect people of otherwise normal intelligence. Dyslexic children may reverse letter and word order, make bizarre spelling errors, and may not be able to name colors or write from dictation. It may be caused by minor visual defects, emotional disturbance, or failure to train the brain. New evidence shows that a neurological disorder may be the underlying cause. Approximately 90% of dyslexics are male. The term dyslexia, of Greek origin, was first suggested by Professor Rudolf Berlin of Stuttgart, Germany, in 1887. The earliest references to the condition date as far back as 30 CE when Valerius Maximus and Pliny described a man who lost his ability to read after being struck on the head by a stone.
How long does it take light from the sun to reach Earth?
Sunlight takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach Earth, traveling at 186,282 miles. 299,792 kilometers per second, although it varies with the position of Earth in its orbit. In January the light takes about 8 minutes 15 seconds to reach Earth. In July the trip takes about 8 minutes 25 seconds.
What is galena?
Galena is a lead sulfide, PbS, and the most common ore of lead, containing 86.6% lead. Lead gray in color, with a brilliant metallic luster, galena has a specific gravity of 7.5 and a hardness of 2.5 on the Mohs scale, and usually occurs as cubes or a modification of an octahedral form. Mined in Australia, it is also found in Canada, China, Mexico, Peru, and the United States, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Montana, and Idaho.
What are riptides and why are they so dangerous?
At points along a coast where waves are high, a substantial buildup of water is created near the shore. This mass of water moves along the shore until it reaches an area of lower waves. At this point, it may burst through the low waves and move out from shore as a strong surface current moving at an abnormally rapid speed known as a rip current. Swimmers who become exhausted in a rip current may drown unless they swim parallel to the shore.
How much air does a person breathe in a lifetime?
During his or her life, the average person will breathe about 75 million gallons. 284 million liters of air per minute. The human body needs 2 gallons, 7.5 liters, of air when lying down, 4 gallons, 15 liters. When sitting, 6 gallons, 23 liters, when walking, and 12 gallons, 45 liters, or more when running.
Why do stars twinkle?
Stars actually shine with a more or less constant light. They appear to twinkle to those of us observing them from Earth due mostly to atmospheric interference. Molecules and dust particles float at random in Earth's covering of gases. When such floating particles pass between a star and a person observing it, there is a brief interruption in the stream of light. Added together, these brief interruptions give rise to twinkling stars.
What is bioremediation?
Bioremediation is the degradation, decomposition, or stabilization of pollutants by microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, and cyanobacteria. Oxygen and organisms are injected into contaminated soil and/or water. Example: oil spills. The microorganisms feed on and eliminate the pollutants. When the pollutants are gone, the organisms die.
What are X-rays?
X-rays are electromagnetic radiation with short wavelengths, 10 to 3 nanometers, and a great amount of energy. They were discovered in 1898 by William Conrad Röntgen, 1845 to 1923. X-rays are frequently used in medicine because they are able to pass through opaque, dense structures such as bone and form an image on a photographic plate. They are especially helpful in assessing damage to bones, identifying certain tumors, and examining the chest, heart and lungs and abdomen. A major disadvantage of X-rays as a diagnostic tool is that they provide little information about the soft tissues. Since they only show a flat, two-dimensional picture, they cannot distinguish between the various layers of an organ. some of which may be healthy while others may be diseased.
Has the United States selected a national insect?
No, the United States does not have a national insect. Congress did consider naming the monarch butterfly as the national insect, but the legislation did not pass.
What was the mission of the Galileo spacecraft?
Galileo, launched October 18, 1989. Required almost 6 years to reach Jupiter after looping past Venus once and Earth twice. The Galileo spacecraft was designed to make a detailed study of Jupiter and its rings and moons over a period of years. On December 7, 1995, it released a probe to analyze the different layers of Jupiter's atmosphere. Galileo recorded a multitude of measurements of the planet, its 4 largest moons, and its mammoth magnetic field. The mission was originally scheduled to continue until the end of 1997, but, since it continued to operate successfully, missions exploring Jupiter's moons were added in 1997, 1999, and 2001. Galileo ended on September 21, 2003. When it passed into Jupiter's shadow and disintegrated in the planet's dense atmosphere.
Evans, CSM pilot, did not walk on the Moon. Which manned spaceflight was the longest?
Dr. Valerij Polyakov manned a flight to the space station Mir on January 8, 1994. He returned aboard Soyuz TM-20 on March 22, 1995, making the total time in space equal 438 days and 18 hours.
How many kinds of mushrooms are edible?
Among the basidiomycetes, there are approximately 200 varieties of edible mushrooms and about 70 species of poisonous ones. Some edible mushrooms are cultivated commercially, more than 844 million pounds. 382,832 metric tons, are produced in the United States each year.
How does a stalactite differ from a stalagmite?
A stalactite is a conical or cylindrical calcite formation hanging from a cave roof. It forms from the centuries-long buildup of mineral deposits resulting from the seepage of water from the limestone rock above the cave. This water containing calcium bicarbonate evaporates, losing some carbon dioxide, to deposit small quantities of calcium carbonate. CaCO3, carbonate of lime, which eventually forms a stalactite. A stalagmite is a stone formation that develops upward from the cave floor and resembles an icicle upside down. Formed from water-containing calcite that drips from the limestone walls and roof of the cave. It sometimes joins a stalactite to form a column.
What percentage of Earth's surface is forest area?
The world's total forest area is just over 4 billion hectares or 31% of the total land area. More than half of the world's forest areas are in the 5 most forest-rich countries: the Russian Federation, Brazil, Canada, the United States, and China.
Without these organisms, what is a biogeochemical cycle?
The elements that organisms need most: carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Cycle through the physical environment, the organism, and then back to the environment. Each element has a distinctive cycle that depends on the physical and chemical properties of the element. Examples of biogeochemical cycles include the carbon and nitrogen cycles, both of which have a prominent gaseous phase. Examples of biogeochemical cycles with a prominent geologic phase include phosphorus and sulfur, where a large portion of the element may be stored in ocean sediments. Examples of cycles with a prominent atmospheric phase include carbon and nitrogen. These biogeochemical cycles involve biological, geologic, and chemical interactions.
What is the Genesis rock?
The Genesis rock is a lunar rock brought to Earth by Apollo 15. It is approximately 4.15 billion years old, which is only 0.5 billion years younger than the generally accepted age of the Moon.
What was unusual about the original Celsius temperature scale?
In 1742, the Swedish astronomer Anders Celsius, 1701 to 1744, set the freezing point of water at 100 degrees Celsius and the boiling point of water at 0 degrees Celsius. It was Carolus Linnaeus, 1707 to 1778, who reversed the scale. But a later textbook attributed the modified scale to Celsius and the name has remained.
What is a solar flare?
A solar flare is a sudden, intense release of energy in the Sun's outer atmosphere. The magnetic energy of a solar flare is released in the form of radiation. At speeds of 1 million miles per hour, 1.6 kilometers per hour. The amount of energy released is equivalent to millions of 100 megaton hydrogen bombs exploding at the same time. The frequency of solar flares is coordinated with the Sun's 11-year cycle. The number of solar flares is greatest at the peak of the solar cycle. Solar flares may be visible from Earth. The first solar flare observed and recorded was in 1859 by Richard C. Carrington, 1826 to 1875, who saw a sudden white light while observing sunspots.
How does a butterfly differ from a moth?
While these guidelines generally hold true, there are exceptions. Moths have hairy bodies, and most have tiny hooks or bristles linking the forewing to the hindwing. Butterflies do not have either characteristic.
What do the numbers on a bag of fertilizer indicate?
The three numbers, such as 15-20-15, refer to the percentages by weight of macronutrients found in the fertilizer. The first number stands for nitrogen, the second for phosphorus, and the third for potassium. In order to determine the actual amount of each element in the fertilizer, multiply the percentage by the fertilizer's total weight in pounds. For example, in a 50-pound bag of 15-20-15, there are 7.5 pounds of nitrogen, 10 pounds of phosphorus, and 7.5 pounds of potassium. The remaining pounds are filler.
What is Web 2?
Web 2.0 is not a new version of the World Wide Web, but rather a collection of new technologies that changes the way users interact with the web. When Tim Berners-Lee, 1955, created the World Wide Web, it was a repository of information with static content, and users were generally unable to easily change or add to the content they were viewing. Newer technologies allow users to contribute to the internet with blogs, wikis, and social networking sites. A further distinction of Web 2.0 is cloud computing, where data and applications, apps, are stored on web servers, rather than on individual computers, allowing users to access their documents, files, and data from any computer with a web browser. Apps include many products, such as word processing and spreadsheets, that were traditionally found in software packages.
Which part of mistletoe is poisonous?
The white berries contain toxic amines, which cause acute stomach and intestinal irritation with diarrhea and a slow pulse. Mistletoe should be considered a potentially dangerous Christmas decoration, especially if children are around.
Which common houseplants are poisonous?
Philodendron, Philodendron and Monstera, and Dumcane. Dieffenbachia are some of the most common poisonous houseplants. All parts of both of these plants are poisonous.
What are some commercial uses of plant hormones?
Plant hormones are used in a variety of applications to control some aspect of plant development. Auxins are used in commercial herbicides as weed killers. Another use of auxins is to stimulate root formation. It is often referred to as the rooting hormone and applied to cuttings prior to planting. Some hormones are used to increase fruit production and prevent pre-harvest fruit drop. Gibberellins are sprayed on Thompson seedless grapes during the flowering stage to thin the flowers on each cluster, thus allowing the remaining flowers to spread out and develop larger fruit. Gibberellins are also used to enhance germination and stimulate the early emergence of seedlings in grapes. Citrus fruits, apples, peaches, and cherries. When used on cucumber plants, gibberellins promote the formation of male flowers, which is useful in the production of hybrid seeds.
What is the role of yeast in beer production?
Beer is made by fermenting water, malt, sugar, hops, yeast, species Saccharomyces, salt, and citric acid. Each ingredient has a specific role in the creation of beer. Malt is produced from a grain, usually barley, that has sprouted, been dried in a kiln, and ground into a powder. Malt gives beer its characteristic body and flavor. Hops is made from the fruit that grows on the herb Humulus lupulus, a member of the mulberry family. The fruit is picked when ripe and is then dried. The ingredient gives beer a slightly bitter flavor. Yeast is used for the fermentation process. Making beer is a complex process. One method begins by mixing and mashing malted barley with a cooked cereal grain such as corn. This mixture, called wort, is filtered before hops is added to it. The wort is then heated until it is completely soluble. The hops is removed, and after the mixture is cooled, yeast is added. The beer ferments for 8 to 11 days at temperatures that range between 50°-70° F, 10°-21° C. The beer is then stored and kept at a state that is close to freezing. During the next few months, the liquid takes on its final character before carbon dioxide is added for effervescence. The beer is then refrigerated, filtered, and pasteurized in preparation for bottling or canning.
What is the relationship between ancient plants and coal formation?
Coal, formed from ancient plant material, is organic. Most of the coal mine today was formed from prehistoric remains of primitive land plants, particularly those of the Carboniferous period, which occurred approximately 300 million years ago. 5 main groups of plants contributed to the formation of coal. The first 3 groups were all seedless, vascular plants, ferns, club mosses, and horsetails. The last 2 groups were primitive gymnosperms and the now extinct seed ferns. Forests of these plants were in low-lying, swampy areas that periodically flooded. When these plants died, they decomposed. But as they were covered by water, they did not decompose completely. Over a period of time, the decomposed plant material accumulated and consolidated.
How much does the heart weigh?
In an infant, the heart is about 1/30 of total body weight. In an average adult, the heart is about 1/300 of total body weight. This equals about 11 ounces, 310 grams, in males and 8 ounces, 225 grams, in females.
How have dill and anise been used throughout history?
Dill, Anethum graveolens, has long been used for medicinal purposes. The Egyptians used dill as a soothing medicine. Greeks habitually used the herb to cure the hiccups. During the Middle Ages, dill was prized for the protection it purportedly provided against witchcraft. Magicians and alchemists used dill to concoct spells. While a commonly known wives' tale stated that dill added to wine could enhance passion, colonial settlers brought dill to North America, where it became known as meat seed because children were given dill seed to chew during long sermons in church. The Romans brought the licorice-flavored herb, anise, Pimpinella anisum, from Egypt to Europe, where they used it as payment for their taxes. It became a popular flavoring for cakes, cookies, bread, and candy.
Do identical twins have the same fingerprints?
No. Even identical twins have differences in their fingerprints, which, though subtle, can be discerned by experts.
How do T cells differ from B lymphocytes?
Lymphocytes are one variety of white blood cells and are the primary cells of the lymphatic system, the body's immune system. The immune system fights invading organisms that have penetrated the body's general defenses. T cells, responsible for dealing with most viruses, for handling some bacteria and fungi, and for cancer surveillance, are one of the 2 main classes of lymphocytes. T lymphocytes, or T cells, compose about 60 to 80% of the lymphocytes circulating in the blood. They have been educated in the thymus to perform particular functions. Killer T cells are sensitized to multiply when they come into contact with antigens, foreign proteins. On abnormal body cells, cells that have been invaded by viruses, cells in transplanted tissue, or tumor cells. These killer T cells attach themselves to the abnormal cells and release chemicals, lymphokines, to destroy them. Helper T cells assist killer cells in their activities and control other aspects of the immune response. When B lymphocytes, which compose approximately 10 to 15% of total lymphocytes, contact the antigens on abnormal cells, the lymphocytes enlarge and divide to become plasma cells. Then the plasma cells secrete vast numbers of immunoglobulins or antibodies into the blood, which attach themselves to the surfaces of the abnormal cells, to begin a process that will lead to the destruction of the invaders. NK, natural killer, cells account for the remaining 5 to 10% of the circulating lymphocytes. They attack foreign cells, normal cells infected with viruses, and cancer cells that appear in normal tissues.
Why is styrofoam a good insulator?
Styrofoam insulates well because the foam form increases the length of path for heat flow through the material. It also reduces the effective cross-sectional area across which the heat can flow.
How much oil is estimated to be in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge?
Geologists are uncertain as to the exact amount of oil that is in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Based on the one seismic survey that was done and the exploration of a few test wells drilled, it is estimated that there may be 16 billion barrels of oil under the tundra of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. However, how economical it is to recover the oil is dependent on market prices and shipping costs. When oil was $25 per barrel, the United States Geological Survey estimated only 7 billion barrels might be pumped profitably. When the price per barrel soared to over $100 per barrel, it would be profitable to recover many more billions of barrels of oil. Drilling for oil in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge continues to pose many environmental issues and concerns.
Where are the organs of equilibrium located?
The organs of equilibrium are located in the inner ear. The otolith organs are located in the vestibule of the membranous labyrinth. They consist of sheets of hair cells covered by a membrane that contains otoliths. Ear stones, which are calcium carbonate crystals. The otolith organs sense linear acceleration of the head in any direction, such as acceleration due to changing the position of your head relative to gravity or acceleration in a car or amusement ride. The inner ear also contains horizontal, posterior, and anterior semicircular canals, which sense angular motions, acceleration, of the head. Each semicircular canal has a specialized sensory region that contains hair cells. And each canal is important for sensing rotation of the head in a different primary direction. For example, the horizontal semicircular canal receptors are sensitive to rotating the head leftward and rightward.
Who was the first woman physician in the United States?
Elizabeth Blackwell, 1821–1910, received her degree in 1849 from Geneva Medical College in New York. After overcoming many obstacles, she set up a small practice that expanded into the New York Infirmary for Women and Children, which featured an all-female staff.
What is the effect of a microburst on aircraft?
Microbursts are downbursts with a diameter of 2.5 miles, 4 kilometers, or less, often associated with thunderstorms. They can generate winds of hurricane force that change direction abruptly. Headwinds can become tailwinds in a matter of seconds, resulting in a loss of airspeed and loss of altitude. After microbursts caused several major air catastrophes in the 1970s and 1980s. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, installed warning and radar systems at airports to alert pilots to wind shear and microburst conditions.
How do wounds heal?
Damage to tissue, such as a cut in the skin, begins to heal with the formation of a sticky lump known as a blood clot. Blood clots prevent blood and other fluids from leaking out. Microscopic sticky threads of the clotting protein fibrin make a tangled mesh that traps blood cells. Within a short time the clot begins to take shape, harden, and become more solid. The clot turns into a scab as it dries and hardens. Skin cells beneath the scab multiply to repair the damage. When the scab falls off, the wound will be healed.
What is the largest artery in the human body?
The aorta is the largest artery in the human body. In adults, it is approximately the size of a garden hose. Its internal diameter is 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, thick.
What is meant by an imperfect flower?
An imperfect flower is one that is unisexual, having either stamens, male parts, or pistils, female parts, but not both.
What is the purpose of primary teeth?
Primary teeth, also known as baby, deciduous, temporary, or milk. For their milk-white color, teeth serve many of the same purposes as permanent teeth. They are needed for chewing and they are necessary for speech development. They also prepare the mouth for the permanent teeth by maintaining space for the permanent teeth to emerge in proper alignment. Each individual has 20 primary teeth followed by 32 permanent teeth.
What is an isotope?
Elements are identified by the number of protons in an atom's nucleus. Atoms of an element that have different numbers of neutrons are isotopes of the same element. Isotopes of an element have the same atomic number but different mass numbers. Although the physical properties of atoms depend on mass, differences in atomic mass, mass numbers, have very little effect on chemical reactions. Common examples of isotopes are carbon-12 and carbon-14. Carbon-12 has 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. Carbon-14 has 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 8 neutrons.
What is a mutation?
A mutation is an alteration in the DNA sequence of a gene. Mutations are a source of variation to a population. But they can have detrimental effects in that they may cause diseases and disorders. One example of a disease caused by a mutation is sickle cell disease, in which there is a change in the amino acid sequence. Valine is substituted for glutamic acid. Of 2 of the 4 polypeptide chains that make up the oxygen-carrying protein known as hemoglobin.
Which breed is known as the voiceless dog?
The Basenji dog does not bark. When happy, it will make an appealing sound described as something between a chortle and a yodel. It also snarls and growls on occasion. One of the oldest breeds of dogs, and originating in Central Africa. The Basenji was often given as a present to the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Following the decline of the Egyptian civilization, the Basenji was still valued in Central Africa for its hunting prowess and its silence. The dog was rediscovered by English explorers in the 19th century. Although it was not widely bred until the 1940s. The Basenji is a small, lightly built dog with a flat skull and a long, rounded muzzle. It measures 16 to 17 inches, 40 to 43 centimeters in height at the shoulder and weighs 22 to 24 pounds, 10 to 11 kilograms. The coat is short and silky in texture. The feet, chest, and tail tip are white, the rest of the coat is chestnut red, black, or black and tan.
What are the major divisions of the brain?
The brain has four major divisions: 1. Brainstem, including the medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain; 2. Cerebellum; 3. Cerebrum; and 4. Diencephalon. The diencephalon is further divided into the thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and ventral thalamus or subthalamus.
What materials are used to make the most powerful permanent magnets?
The most powerful permanent magnets are made from alloys of iron, boron, and neodymium. Magnetic strength is measured in units called Tesla and Gauss. 1 Tesla equals 10,000 Gauss. Most of the magnets used to decorate the refrigerator are 10 Gauss. The most powerful permanent magnets produce magnetic fields of approximately 1.5 Tesla.
What is the normal pH of blood?
The normal pH of arterial blood is 7.4 while the pH of venous blood is about 7.35. Arterial blood has a slightly higher pH because it has less carbon dioxide.
What are the major subdivisions of botany?
The major subdivisions of botany are: agronomy, the application of plant science to crop production; bryology, the study of mosses and liverworts; economic botany, the study of the utilization of plants by humans; ethnobotany, the study of the use of plants by indigenous peoples; forestry, the study of forest management and the utilization of forest products; horticulture, the study of ornamental plants, vegetables, and fruit trees; paleobotany, the study of fossil plants; palynology, the study of pollen and spores; phytochemistry, the study of plant chemistry, including the chemical processes that take place in plants; plant anatomy, the study of plant cells and tissues. Plant ecology, the study of the role plants play in the environment; plant genetics, the study of genetic inheritance in plants; plant morphology, the study of plant forms and life cycles; plant pathology, the study of plant diseases; plant physiology, the study of plant function and development; Plant systematics, the study of the classification and naming of plants.
How much has recycling of municipal solid waste grown since 1960?
In 1960 the recycling rate was 6.4%. It has grown to 33.2% in 2008. On average, Americans recycled and composted 1.5 pounds, 0.7 kilograms, of our individual waste generation of 4.5 pounds, 2 kilograms, per person per day.
What is the Coriolis effect?
The 19th century French engineer Gaspard C. Coriolis, 1792 to 1843, discovered that the rotation of Earth deflects streams of air. Because Earth spins to the east, all moving objects in the northern hemisphere tend to turn somewhat to the right of a straight path, while those in the southern hemisphere turn slightly left. The Coriolis effect explains the lack of northerly and southerly winds in the tropics and polar regions. The northeast and southeast trade winds and the polar easterlies all owe their westward deflection to the Coriolis effect.
What is the purpose of the International Space Station, ISS?
The International Space Station, ISS, orbits Earth at an altitude of about 250 miles, 400 kilometers. The ISS travels at 17,500 miles per hour, 32,410 kilometers per hour. In an orbit that extends from 52 degrees north latitude to 52 degrees south latitude. Its main purpose is to serve as a laboratory for materials, communications technology, and biological and medical research in an environment that lacks the force of gravity.
What is the significance of Darwin's finches?
In his studies on the Galapagos Islands, Charles Darwin observed patterns in animals and plants that suggested to him that species changed over time to produce new species. Darwin collected several species of finches. The species were all similar, but each had developed beaks and bills specialized to catch food in a different way. Some species had heavy bills for cracking open tough seeds. Others had slender bills for catching insects. One species used twigs to probe for insects in tree cavities. All the species resembled one species of South American finch. In fact, all the plants and animals of the Galapagos Islands were similar to those of the nearby 600 miles / 1,000 kilometers away, coast of South America. Darwin felt that the simplest explanation for this similarity was that a few species of plants and animals from South America must have migrated to the Galapagos Islands. These few plants and animals then changed during the years they lived in their new home, giving rise to many new species. Evolutionary theory proposes that species change over time in response to environmental challenges.
How is bulletproof glass made?
Bulletproof glass is composed of two sheets of plate glass with a sheet of transparent resin in between, molded together under heat and pressure. When subjected to a severe blow, it will crack without shattering. Today's bulletproof glass is a development of laminated or safety glass. Invented by the French chemist Édouard Benedictus, 1878 to 1930. It is basically a multiple lamination of glass and plastic layers.
What plants produce essential oils that are commonly used in aromatherapy?
Aromatherapy is a holistic approach to healing using essential oils extracted from plants. Holistic medicine looks at the health of the whole individual, and treatments emphasize the connection of mind, body, and spirit. The term aromatherapy was first used by René Gattefossé, 1881 to 1950. A French perfume chemist. He discovered the healing powers of lavender oil following a laboratory accident during which he burned his hand. Gattefossé began to investigate the properties of lavender oil and other essential oils and published a book on plant extracts. During aromatherapy treatments, essential oils are absorbed through breath or the pores of the skin. This process triggers certain physiological responses.
When was the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, created and what does it do?
In 1970, President Richard M. Nixon, 1913 to 1994, signed an executive order that created the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, as an independent agency of the U.S. government. The creation of a federal agency by executive order rather than by an act of the legislative branch is somewhat uncommon. The EPA was established in response to public concern about unhealthy air, polluted rivers, and groundwater, unsafe drinking water, endangered species, and hazardous waste disposal. Responsibilities of the EPA include environmental research, monitoring, and enforcement of legislation regulating environmental activities. The EPA also manages the cleanup of toxic chemical sites as part of a program known as Superfund.
What is the fourth state of matter?
Plasma, a mixture of free electrons and ions or atomic nuclei, is sometimes referred to as a fourth state of matter. Plasmas occur in thermonuclear reactions as in the Sun, in fluorescent lights, and in stars. When the temperature of gas is raised high enough, the collision of atoms becomes so violent that electrons are knocked loose from their nuclei. The result of a gas having loose, negatively charged electrons and heavier, positively charged nuclei is called a plasma. All matter is made up of atoms. Animals and plants are organic matter. Minerals and water are inorganic matter. Solid, liquid, and gas are the first three states of matter. Whether matter appears as a solid, liquid, or gas depends on how the molecules are held together in their chemical bonds. Solids have a rigid structure in the atoms of the molecules. In liquids the molecules are close together but not packed. In a gas, the molecules are widely spaced and move around, occasionally colliding but usually not interacting.
Do all birds fly?
Oh. Among the flightless birds, the penguins and the ratites are the best known. Ratites include emus, kiwis, ostriches, rheas, and cassowaries. They are called ratite because they lack a keel on the breastbone. All of these birds have wings but lost their power to fly millions of years ago. Many birds that live isolated on oceanic islands, for example, the great auk, apparently became flightless in the absence of predators and the consequent gradual disuse of their wings for escape.